Hello and welcome everyone to our final session of the day. And it's one that I've been looking forward to particularly as it's our very first panel discussion. So I'm joined by a few experts from different corners of marketing, and today we will be discussing WTF is new normal. Amongst a number of other overused pandemic-centric phrases you may have heard, new normal attracts particular interests. Immediately, marketers have had to adapt to working from home, cutting through more noise and reaching customers whilst in lockdown using new means and technology. We've assembled our own Avengers to discuss normality from all corners of marketing. There's a little rundown to the session, the title and the description. And I just wanted to put a little caveat out with this. I've watched a couple of other sessions about the new normal, and people raise a really good point. Nobody knows what the new normal is. So this is merely some advice and tips from us and our partners at the event that hopefully provides you guys with some help. It's not meant to be a Bible. It's not something rigid to stick by, but if we can give you just a little thing to take away that helps, then that's mission accomplished. So with regards to Zoom, we have the chat function. So please do put your waves in the chat and say hello to us all. Make sure you're chatting away. We'd love to see that you're there and you're still awake. Separate to that, you have the question and answer function. So please do use that if you've got any questions for me or any of the panelists during the session. Without further ado, let's get underway. So I'd like to welcome my first panelist to the session, who is James Biggin from Steel City. James, how are you?
Hi Ash, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you very much.
Really well. James, if you'd like to just give us a minute to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm Managing Director of Steel City. We are a branded merchandise supplier based in Sheffield, but we deal UK-wide with all manner of companies and organisations with regard to anything that they put their brand on to use within their promotional activities, so events or campaigns. And we're seeing a big shift at the moment in terms of what people are demanding.
Sure, thanks for that, James. Looking forward to hearing some views from you. Our next panelist is John Hughes, who's the UK Business Development Manager of Plezi. John, welcome to the stage.
Hello, Ashley.
Hi, John, you well?
I'm great, thanks. Are you good?
Yeah, really good. If you could just give us a little intro of who you are and what you do, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, my name's John, and I'm the business developer for Plezi. Plezi is basically a marketing automation tool, which allows you to centralize your content, optimize your web page and your brand image, and also to be able to automate and personalize different messages to your prospects.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. Look forward to hearing from you. And last, but by no means least, you have Nick Washbourn, who's the Commercial Director of SoAmpli. Hi, Nick. Oh, just going to pop you off of mute. Got you there. That's cool. How are you, Nick? You all right?
Yeah, very good. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Nick Washbourn. I'm Commercial Director of SoAmpli, a Force 24 company. So SoAmpli is a social media innovation. It's an employee advocacy tool that's designed to assist marketers in getting their content out there to reach their audience of customers and prospects through getting their colleagues to engage with their content. And it's that untapped resource that every company has that right now very few are tapping into. So that's what SoAmpli is all about. And thank you for inviting me to the panel.
Great. No, thanks for being here, guys. And that goes for all of you. So look, that's our panel. That's our Avengers so far. So let's, without further ado, crack on with the discussion. And the first question I want to pose to you guys is, how do we market to customers who are stuck at home in lockdown? And James, I'd like to get your opinion first. Oh, James, just unmute you, sorry. You're right. Go again, second attempt, sorry.
So I'm sorry about that. I should have unmuted myself. The thought would be to shift your thinking in terms of what you've done before and trying to bring in maybe that personalized side. I think personalization has been creeping into particularly our sector for a long time, but in terms of a lot of marketing aspects and tactics. And I think personalization is going to be really important for people to consider, especially when maybe people are feeling a bit vulnerable at home, maybe people are feeling a bit separate from what they're used to. Also, really interesting to consider direct mail. We've almost got rid of junk mail these days. Direct mail is a really underutilized tool. And I think there's going to be some really clever ways that people decide on how they're going to get in touch with people by actually getting straight to them and straight to the heart of where they're actually working.
Brilliant. Thanks, James. That's interesting. John, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one because I would say there are different stages of what's kind of happened in the lockdown, and there was the immediate effects of that and so on. And in that kind of case, it rendered certain messages to be kind of tone deaf and so on and so forth. So, you know, like any situation when you're in marketing, I think you need to be agile, and I think you need to be empathetic, and you need to register what's happened to a certain extent. But here's the thing that I would say, and it's something that we deal with a lot with our clients. Ultimately, you know, if you're selling semiconductors and you're giving messages about that, you don't need to be speaking about COVID-19 all the time. In fact, the more important thing to do is actually spend this time talking about your brand and building your brand. So for us, the kind of message we've been spreading at Plezi is build your brand, continue giving your message. You don't have to swamp everything in this bucket of COVID-19, coronavirus, and so on, because then the message actually gets lost about who you are. Retain your core message.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a very, very valid point. And lastly, coming to you, Nick, with regards to how do we reach marketers who are stuck at home?
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you know, what John's saying there about really sort of developing the brand. But I think, you know, we do have to be really empathetic with our messaging. So a shift has been needed here. You know, I think supportive and educational content is absolutely key. You know, we've been running a series of daily webinars from the start of the lockdown, and for us, it's, you know, retreating a little bit from the direct sales approach, and it's a bit about, you know, really putting our arm around the business community, supporting our customers and our prospects, you know, that's been pretty key. And in terms of SoAmpli, one of the things that we've done, we've introduced 3-month free of charge use on the platform as something to really kind of support you know, businesses that, you know, are in this challenging period.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, so empathy, personalization, direct mail, some really interesting ways to get in touch with marketers and market your business throughout COVID-19 to people who are stuck at home. Moving on from that, a slight shift. As marketers ourselves, how do we start to work from home better? What do we do with our time, and how do we get better when maybe we're not in the office and we can't walk into the room and bounce a question off your colleague? How do we do things better? Nick, I'd like to come to you first, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, you know, it's getting that balance of routine and flexibility. You know, we've been giving guidance to our guys around, you know, bringing some structure into your days, you know, around getting that exercise in, dressing yourself ready for a work day, but also at the same time, you know, don't just sit in front of that screen for 9 hours, you know, on Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting. If you need to take those breaks, take the breaks. You know, it's about getting this to work around you. Not just, as I say, sat there in front of a screen for 10 hours.
Yeah, and for many, I read right at the start when we were planning how we react to this working from home, and for many, their laptop is in the same place as they relax afterwards. And I found that creating a clear split and trying to treat like our spare bedroom as my office, but then I've got a relaxation place as well, is a key thing for my own wellness, and I'm sure other people have found that as well. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I can agree with both of your points. You know, sometimes this also depends on what kind of company you are, what size company you are, whether you're used to doing it, what your home experience is like, and so on. So it's tough to give advice on it. Obviously, for people who aren't used to it, things like what we're doing now have become massively important, and communication is the key when you're apart from your different teams. That's massively important. But yeah, I would agree with you as well, Ash, that you know, like separating home from work is really important as well. Just in terms of, you know, for me actually, I kind of miss the journey home as a way of losing work at the end of the day. And it's kind of, I mean, I actually, at the moment, what I do is I kind of do some sport in between kind of, you know, you just finish work, you go and do some sport, and then there's that moment where actually you've let go of the day, and then you're ready to actually have your evening and kind of be kind of be cooler, you know.
And John, Plezi is a French company, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you must be used to kind of, you know, obviously you.
Oh, 100%. And even our team in France aren't all in one place. There's some people in Paris, there's some people in the south of France. We've got some of our customer support who are in Spain, and they travel around and things like that. So we're very, I mean, we have like a Monday morning meeting and so on, which we've always had, and you know, half the people would be coming in on screens anyway. So we're very used to it. And me personally, I've always taken certain days to work at home when I've had certain things to concentrate on. So I'm kind of used to it. Having said that, after many, many weeks of being totally alone, it's starting to get on my nerves.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't think anything can replace that kind of face-to-face interaction, and I'm sure we'll all be looking forward to it. But I've certainly learned that we can work from home.
Yeah. I also, you know, I mean, I've got lots of friends who are in, you know, big companies who, you know, that, you know, their bosses wouldn't dream of letting them out of their site and so on. And they've now realized, actually, this can work.
Yeah, true. James, do you have a point of view on this?
I think adding to that, it's the structure and routine. And I think we're all probably going to be really fit and really good bakers at the end of this, because you've got to have a reason to step away from the desk or the space that you've created for yourself. And just adding to it, not necessarily just for marketers, but I think it's probably giving yourself the challenges to do what you've put off before. So try something within the marketing sphere that you've said always that you do, but you've never actually tried to tackle. And maybe that's the kiss the frog metaphor that you try and do, but I'd probably suggest that that could come into play, and it's really giving yourself a challenge within that marketing arena. We're finding that my marketing colleague is working better in short bursts of work. So whereas rather than a big block of day, she's putting aside several hours, and although she's part-time, she's managing to clear off more work than she would have done if she'd been at the office for a full day. So she's doing everything in small bursts over more days.
Yeah, I think that's dead important. I mean, we've got staff in our company who've got kids, and where schools aren't open, you're having to manage, you know, suddenly you'll shift from marketer to teacher at home. And I think being able to be flexible with your working hours is fantastic if you're able to offer that opportunity. At this point, just taking a little break, people, please do feel free to ask questions of us. I'm more than happy to pose some other questions to the guys here on the panel with regards to towards the end of the talk, certainly. So if you've got any questions about the new normal with regards to marketing, you know, we'll do our best to answer those, and I'll certainly ask that question on your behalf. So just use the question and answer panel at the bottom. Moving on, this is a really big one for me, and I'm sure other marketers that are watching right now can kind of sympathise with what I'm saying here, but lots of companies have just been forced to cut budgets, rightly or wrongly. What can a clever marketer do to achieve more with less right now, really? John?
For us, again, it comes to the heart of what we do at Plezi, and we talk a lot about content and building your brand, saying who you are. And I would say at this moment, if you haven't got the budget to spend on events or different kind of activities, the thing that you can do, which is absolutely free, is basically write content, say who you are, speak to your target audience, make it as educational as possible and not as salesy as possible, and spread that message about who you are. So I would say that content is totally free. You can post it, you can blog it, you can do webinars, you can do podcasts, you can do various different things. I would say think about who you are, think about who you want to talk to, and write about that.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Nick, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think generally speaking, automation tools are absolutely key here. You know, if the marketeer can kind of disconnect from the wheels of marketing, set the campaigns up, let them run, and then focus on the bigger picture stuff, the more strategic thinking, that's a big win. Creating content, I absolutely agree with John on that, but making sure that it is that relevant content that really differentiates you as a brand. Don't just get a part of this white noise that's out there by talking about this particular topic that's obviously on everyone's minds, because you will just become part of the noise then. But I think, building an employee advocacy program, it's really, really good timing for that right now. As I said at the start, it's all about tapping into that resource that every company has, that very few are really fully taking advantage of right now, and that's the social networks of the people that you work with, and getting good content into their hands to share out. It's a great time for doing that. I think, generally speaking, in terms of employee advocacy program, you're going to get a really high return for a low investment in terms of budget, but also resource. And as marketeers, what more can we be looking for? But particularly at this time, it's relevant.
And Nick, just playing dummy. I don't have to play that, but being the dummy, just give me a headline of what employee advocacy is.
So employee advocacy is all about getting your colleagues to engage with your social content, to share out to their audiences. A lot of what marketers are obsessed with is creating great content, which is fantastic, but then sharing it out to company pages. And that's not where it hits its mark. It's about getting the teams to engage with that content and sharing it out to where our customers and prospects reside. And if you just send an email around to them, asking them to share content, you won't be too successful. It's about having a platform that creates a competitive environment to encourage people to share out that content. And I think right now it's particularly important because, I think it's a way that our colleagues can really contribute, and a lot of resources being reallocated in businesses as the way we're working is changing. And this is a way that our colleagues can really contribute, sharing out this great content that we're creating. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And James, just putting back to the question, what can marketers do with less to get more?
These guys are good, aren't they? These two. I'd probably sort of just go very slightly on the different tangent and add to the content element, which is if the messaging previous to this was in one angle, I think the messaging will have to change. So we talked about empathy at the start. I think you can't go out with a sales angle. You can't go out with a sales message right now. If you were doing it before, it just won't work. I think you've also got to consider, once you've changed that message, is how to create the content, which the guys very clearly explained. But then I really like the thought of spinning that content out in lots of different ways. So we're not bold enough to make a podcast yet, but I think with our content that we can produce from the empathetic level, we could spin it out into lots of different angles. So it could be a little video, it could be a little meme, it could be a little audio. You can create one piece of content and try and spin it out into 5 or 10 pieces to go to various channels and various audiences. And the last bit would probably be to give without wanting to receive. And I sort of give the highlight of an IT company that might do a webinar on Microsoft Teams. They're giving away free advice, regularly doing these webinars, and they're going to stay front of mind. And that is a very clever tactic at the moment to consider, especially with Zoom and especially with all of the live situations that we're creating for each other. So I'd probably give unconditionally right now and not set too many targets on the back of that.
Yeah, very, very good point. I mean, repurposing content. When we're looking at our marketing strategy, because you say it so much to yourself, you think, oh, am I saying this too much? But really, your end user's only seeing a fraction of that. So yeah. I think you'd probably be bolder in repurposing stuff. If you've got a podcast, take that and share it as much as you can. So very, very good point. Here's looking to the future a little bit, and none of us have a crystal ball, or at least I certainly don't. What have you done now in lockdown that you think's here to stay post-pandemic, looking ahead to whether that be, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, however long you maybe think that piece of string is? What's here to stay post-pandemic? James, have you got a crystal ball?
I wish I had, because Sunday night really knocked the wind out of my sails when I really didn't quite work out where we could go from. But I think the pace reduction will hopefully stay to a degree. I think people grab hold of a few things that they've managed to achieve positively out of it. Online's obviously going to massively increase, and these sorts of things. The empathy message, I hope, really stays. I think if people can really link in their messaging with what they understand from another business, I don't think we've really ever stepped back and looked from another set of people's point of view. You're always thinking about what you need to do, but if you can link that empathy side and actually understand what an industry or a business is going through, I think you'll really do well. The giving knowledge that I just mentioned in the last answer, I hope people give more. We certainly want to. We're talking about how you can froth milk for coffee. You know, these are not sort of things that we would have ever considered sharing on our social before. So I think those sorts of things should really stay, and they're quite fundamental values that I think strong businesses, if they employ them, will be successful in doing.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thanks, James. John, what's your view? What's here to stay?
I agree a lot with what James just said, in the sense, empathy is a really interesting one, and you know, you've got to have hope in the future that is going to stay. You know, when we're talking about marketing, to a certain extent, we're talking about selling, right? And nobody likes to be sold to, but people do like to be educated to. People do like to be engaged. People do like to be treated like another human being. And so, you know, again, when I'm talking about content or blog posts or optimizing that and pushing that out, that message can be one of empathy. That message can be one that is also educational about what your product is, and actually talking to your target audience about the things they care about. So definitely, I hope that's to stay. I would also say, just in terms of, and we touched on this before, in terms of working from home, I think we're going to see that a little bit more. I also think that, just in terms of, again, people working in cities and so on, because their workplace is there, I think we might start to see people realizing, actually, I can live in this small town and still do my job and communicate with other people and so on. And so within that kind of working from home, a lot of the things that we've seen, which is technology, which is communication, which is alignment between different areas of a workplace, whether, you know, again, especially marketing and sales, need to be well aligned in terms of the message that they're sending out. I think we're going to see a lot more of those things.
Yeah, great. Thanks, John. And finally, Nick.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ash. I totally agree with the two guys. You know, I think the remote working will carry through post incarceration. I think, you know, a lot of businesses will have learned some really important lessons from this around, you know, flexibility of working, and how, you know, work isn't a place that you go to, it's a thing that you do. And I think that, generally speaking, you know, this will lead to, you know, better work-life balance for people. I think in terms of the way that we sell, I think a lot more sales will be done through digital meetings going forward. You know, that dependence on face-to-face meetings will be gone, as businesses have seen that reduction in their cost of sales. That will no doubt carry forward. So I think there's a lot of positives that will be taken from this.
And it touches upon actually a question that's been asked in the chat, and again, encouraging everyone to, if you've got a question, there's nothing too stupid, I promise you. So please do just pop a question in the chat or in the Q&A. And James has gone on to actually talk about it, so I will come to you first, James. But if you could share with the audience, somebody's asked, will live events be part of the new normal? What do you think, James?
Well, I think they'll go hand in hand. I think people are enjoying them and benefiting from them significantly. And whereas travel or time might have restricted people's ability to get to certain face-to-face events, then I think you'll actually see that maybe it'll balance out, and maybe the audience figures won't necessarily increase, but you'd actually like to hope that audience figures would increase, because it opens up the scope of people that wouldn't normally have traveled to go and see an exhibition or an event or a webinar, an actual talk, for whatever reason, whether that's restriction of family, travel or business. And I actually would hope that these will marry up and go really hand in hand. Technology is improved, people are using it really well, and so actually not only the face-to-face but the live will actually make an events calendar really quite impressive.
Definitely. I mean, I was going to say we've all been agreeing with each other. It's been a very amicable discussion so far. I do agree with that, and you're speaking to an exhibition organizer, so I of course think they're here to stay, and I think most people would agree that we miss speaking to people, but we'll only be able to do so when safe. And I've been spending a huge amount of time in my research looking into hybrid events, as you suggest, James, and there will be some people that when we go back to live shows will be anxious, and we can still continue to provide content via these virtual formats. So Nick, anything to add to live events? What do you think?
Well, I think hybrid events will be a thing of the future, and I think the innovation that you guys have shown has been really impressive, and you've really sort of led the way on this as far as what I've seen. And I have to admit, I was slightly sceptical at the start about the value of digital events, and I've been wholeheartedly proven wrong on that. I've seen some great engagement from it, and I'm sure there'll be some great lessons learned that can be carried forward to create these hybrid events, as you say, where individuals that aren't able to make a physical event will still benefit from that content.
Yeah. And lastly, John.
I'm sure that hybrid events will be really interesting. I've been in a few kind of online different events, and they're always really good. At the same time, as you know, Ashley, we signed up for Marketing Showcase because we wanted to meet some people, and there is, to a certain extent, there is always some sort of link that you make with people when you do different events and you have conversations and so on, and that's part of the face-to-face thing, which will never go away. But no one can predict when that's gonna get up and running again.
Yeah, and that leads me really nicely on to one of my points to visitors that are watching this now. Of course, the guys on the panel here and everyone involved with the virtual event are doing this to talk to you guys, to share expertise, to discuss ideas, to sell their products to a certain extent, but they're there to help. So I would like for people that are in the talk now to just pop yes in the chat if you'd like me to pass your details on to any of the speakers today to continue the conversation, whether you've got questions, whether you want to receive brochures, just pop a yes in the chat and I can certainly pass over your contact details to the guys here. The session has been recorded, so we will be sharing that afterwards if you wish to review it. But if you need any contact from the guys here, I can certainly share your contact details with them and you can continue the conversation afterwards. I do just want to leave everyone with one last question, unless somebody wants to pop into the chat with a final question for the panelists. But it's with regards to technology, and this would be interesting because we've got two tech suppliers here, and then we have a branded merchandise supplier who's, you're more on the physical side of things. So I want to ask you how you think technology will further assist the marketer over the next few years. And, this doesn't have to apply to a pandemic, but how is technology helping people in the future? I'd like to sort of start with Nick.
Yeah, I think the future is very bright, really, for MarTech and how it assists the marketeer. I think we're yet to see the true value of AI in our space, and right now, I don't think it's quite in the place where it's driving the value that we hoped. But that will change dramatically, I'm convinced, and that will lead to marketers being able to do what we always want to do, and that is deliver the right message at the right time through the right channel. And that's only going to get easier through the development of AI.
Brilliant. And let's hear from John as the last tech, and then we'll pose that up against James to sort of close us off. So, John, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this does, this does link into the situation that we're in at the moment, in the sense that, once it did happen, you saw everybody go online for everything. So there's no doubt at all that digital messages are really, really important. There's no doubt that technology plays a part in that. I think that what is a really important message is actually more to say, okay, if you're sending your message out, are you actually looking at how effective that is. I mean, you know, I speak to a lot of people who have no idea what kind of statistics they've got from from creating some piece of content, or creating a webinar, or sending out their messages on social media. If you're not getting any stats, if you're not understanding your return on investment, if you're not actually using a tool that is basically going to say this is working really well for you and this is not working so well, then there's no way for you to be able to measure what kind of messages you're sending out. So for me, I would say technology is massively important, but you can't just use it like a blanket spray and pray approach. You really need to define your message. You need to personalize your message, and you need to be able to actually measure that.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that insight. And James, actually, we spoke a couple of days ago about and we spoke about it on this call, but how when we come back to the workplace, not only is technology going to be important, but looking after employees and providing them with the right tools, the right feeling of welcome back. And perhaps that's a more interesting angle for you to come at this from. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is. I think getting people back safely to the workplace, getting them to work is going to be really important. So whereas I can't really contribute on the technology side necessarily as strongly as the other two guys, I think that everything marries up. And I think that the spread and the balance of the marketing book, really, the money that will be spent will just shift. You know, we've seen in our sector, social media was going to take literally completely over everything, and no one would spend money on print or branded merchandise, however long ago it was. Everything that's come in, people tend to shift towards, and they'll have a movement in that direction, and they'll cling hold of it, but they'll still come back to some of the traditional ways and the tactics that will give them brand exposure and brand recall. And I think we're in that real sector of brand recall and exposure, and you know, fantastic for making sure you get some real good feel good factors out there in terms of a marketing spend. And I think back to work packs that are going to include some safety tools. People are going to link themselves to the pandemic, which we didn't really dismiss earlier on, but I think they are going to link themselves to social distancing, because it's so important that you make sure that you do the right thing by everyone when they're working. And I think that'll go from sneeze protectors right through to masks that are branded, that can be handed out and made sure that people are safe when they're out and about and can do more.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, James. We're coming to the sort of end of our time, but there's been a couple of really good questions in the chat. So if you guys have got time for one more, brilliant. I'd like to ask it to Steve's asked, and it's been mirrored by one of the other visitors. How do you hug a customer online? And, you know, let's just talk about it. So, Nick, I mean, how would you go about hugging a customer online?
Yeah. Well, I think you get a warm hug when you feel that you're really listened to and you feel that you're valued. So personalization allows us to do that. You know, if we just share content with people that has no relevance, then we don't get that warm glow. But if we're watching their web activity, we're trying to identify their likes and dislikes, and we can share content that is in line with that. That is one way of putting a hug around people. But other things, you know, it's just sharing that educational content. It's, you know, the sort of initiatives, you know, the giving side that James is talking about. And as I mentioned at the start, you know, one of the things that we've done is said, right now, use our platform for 3 months. Just try and get value from it. We think it's a really important time for employee advocacy. Use it for 3 months. There's no strings attached. Doesn't roll into a contract. Just try and get value from your teams with it. And it's these sorts of messages, these sorts of things that you can do to sort of put your arm around your kind of business community.
Brilliant, thank you. And James, maybe perhaps not online, but how do you give someone a hug through your brand? What would you suggest?
I think it's making touch points that really matter to somebody. So we've seen examples of people sending little packs of sweets, not necessarily by us. I've seen them online being done elsewhere, but making sure that you take the time to consider what that person might get a real lift from, whether they need a boost from something. It can be so simple. it doesn't have to be anything branded. I'm not trying to link something in here, but the hug can come remotely, but it has to be really well thought out, and it has to, you know, be something, I don't know, it's the warm glow feeling that, you know, if you opened a pack of Jelly Babies, it doesn't matter that it costs 20p. It matters in that minute that that person's just received it. That's as simple as I can be on something like a hug. And it's been thought out and just been really considered.
I think you're dead right. And also what you know, it ties in really nice. Don't sell, just help. If you're there to help and you offer that freely, lovingly, then it's got to be well received as a hug. John, lastly, please give us your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm to take it really literally, and they're a customer and they're not a lead, then you want to be listening to them, you want to be talking to them, and this is beyond marketing. You know, you've got to hope that your customer service team are talking to them and finding out what's going on. But I will echo Nick's point. There is also a customer is also somebody that will still want to receive messages from your company, still wants to receive messages that are relevant to them. I mean, this is true for us at Plezi. When we deal with our customers, we want them to love what we do. You know, we talk to them all the time. We're always listening to them. We want that customer to become an ambassador, basically.
Brilliant. And, you know, just to sort of round off there, I heard it from one of our speakers earlier today, and I just think it's worth me putting in there. Now's a really good time to win customers for friends for life, not customers. But if you reach out, like with Nick's offer there, or, you know, you've got the sweets example that James gave, or even just a nice email, a nice message, you've got a chance right now to win a friend for life. When we come out post-pandemic and they perhaps do have a budget to spend, you've got a real friend there. So that's brilliant. We've gone over the time ever so slightly, so I'm going to sort of pull things there, and I'm going to give people the chance to put their yeses in the chat if you do want to hear from our panelists after the presentation. I can forward you their details and get them to get in touch, whether it be learning about some of the fantastic tech that our panelists have on offer, or James and, you know, some of the tools that you can use him for. Please do just pop a yes, and I'll make sure your details get over to them. But that about rounds us off. So thank you, panelists, for joining us for our very, very first panel discussion. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, you guys were great. That was really good. And thanks again to everybody that's watching or has tuned in at some point. We've recorded the session, so please do feel free to watch that. But thanks again, everyone. Really look forward to continuing the conversation, I guess.
Thanks, Ash. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, everybody, for listening.
Have a great day, guys. I'm going to pull things here, so that's great. Cheers.
Cheers.